What a life we lead in the summer, in the sun, in the heat, and welcome from the grounds of All Souls this morning. I'm Reverend Louise Green, and I'm so happy to be with you on this day of summer solstice in the Northern Hemisphere. Poet Mary Oliver wrote this poem to the sun called Why I Wake Early. Hello, sun in my face. Actually, in my face today. Hello, you who make the morning and spread it over the fields and into the faces of the tulips and the nodding morning glories, and into the windows of even the miserable and the crotchety. Best preacher that ever was, the sun, dear star that just happens to be where you are in the universe to keep us from ever darkness, to ease us with warm touching, to hold us in these great hands of light. Good morning, good morning, good morning, dear star. Watch now how we start the day in happiness and in kindness. Let us worship and celebrate another day for singing and loving life together. Now I invite choir members Courtney and David Arnold to light our chalice.
We light the chalice to celebrate the values of justice and love that our blessed community embraces.
We celebrate these values in the power of our liberal faith as we raise our voices to welcome all souls on this summer solstice day.
Good morning, friends. As always, the third Sunday of June is the conclusion of our official church year, the final Sunday with choirs leading music before we return in September for Homecoming Sunday. This year has looked a bit different for a whole slew of reasons, but one thing that has remained a constant is Sunday morning, full of music and joy and community and connectedness under the most unusual and challenging of circumstances. I am beyond impressed by and proud of my colleagues who have helped to keep the music alive this year, who didn't allow even one Sunday to pass without offering soul-stirring music, despite the steep technical learning curve, the lack of motivation and inspiration, the lack of physical connection. It has been a tremendous effort made possible by so many committed individuals among us who love this art, this church, this community. A thank you could never encompass everything that is on my heart, but I say it anyway. Thank you. While visiting Pittsburgh last weekend, I walked past the Pittsburgh Cultural Trust office and saw this fabulous Oscar Wilde quote. The stage is not merely the meeting place of all the arts, but also the return of art to life. As we return to life and to the stage, which I might add, we have only done so after requiring full vaccination from all participants and after many consultations with experts in the field, let us remember to continue to guard well our human chain. Be safe this summer, friends, so that September can be filled with hugs and music and singing and air conditioning. One of my favorite children's books ends with the line, "We sang you home. Thank you for singing back." Thank you all, and happy solstice. Now please join in singing our opening hymn, Yonder Come Day.
Good morning. Welcome to All Souls Church. My name is Morgan Duncan, and I get to be your worship associate this lovely Father's Day morning. Welcome to a place where for the last 200 years we have been collectively striving to make our hearts more peaceful, our congregation more embracing, our community more safe and healthy, and our world more just and free. I invite you to join us as we work to build a diverse, spirit-growing, justice-seeking community that is true to our name, All Souls. This welcome goes out to everyone in our growing global community, especially to those of you for whom this is your first time, or your first time in a long time. If you'd like to be included on our mailing list, please send a direct message to Gary Penn, our membership coordinator. In an effort to acknowledge and support Indigenous communities, it is important to recognize the land on which our church stands. The closest tribe was Nacotchtank, from which the name Anacostia is derived. They were part of the Piscataway group of tribes. We acknowledge that Indigenous people were here before us, are here with us now, and will continue to be with us as we look forward to the future. Let's take a moment of silence to reflect on whose land we each reside in our individual and collective locations around the U.S. and our planet Earth. We come now to our time of beholding. As the music plays, bask in the warmth of the smiles on gallery view, and feel free to drop a message in the chat as we take a moment to enjoy the blessing of being together.
All right. I'm Reverend Kathleen Lenz, and I'm serving as your interim senior minister, and I am delighted to bring you worship live from the All Souls Courtyard. We hope that many of you will join us here this afternoon from 2 to 5 p.m. for our summer solstice celebration with music, arts, drumming, dance, activities for families and children. Detailed information can be found in your e-newsletter. So come on down to All Souls to see old friends and to make new ones. Just a reminder, you will not be logging on to the All Souls website next Sunday because you'll be attending worship virtually at General Assembly. The link for that service can be found on our church's website Saturday night or first thing Sunday morning. It'll be available at 10:30, or if you sleep in, you can also join thousands of other Unitarian Universalists at noon. It's always inspiring, so we hope that you'll plan on attending. I also want to mention that registration for All Souls Summer Camp for children held in August from August 2nd to 13th. The registration for camp closes June 30th. Friends, if you've been on the fence about registering your children or child for that event, please, all I can say is just do it. It's going to be an extraordinary experience that you don't want to miss. Finally, our plans for reopening and offering in-person worship can be found on our church's website. It may change between now and September 12th, but right now our plans are for one service offered both in person and Zoom at 10:30 in the morning. We will keep you posted about that as we get closer to our reopening date. So now we take a moment for pastoral concerns, both far and wide. And we first just want to wish all of you a happy Father's Day, especially to all of you who have the privilege and responsibility of being a father. And we recognize and honor those men who are or have been like a father to us. And we also must celebrate the creation of Juneteenth as a federally recognized holiday. Juneteenth, a day long known but often ignored, except in individual states, is now taking its rightful place in our collective national consciousness. And all of us owe a debt of gratitude to the decades-long work done by those who sought to make Juneteenth a national holiday. So closer to home, we send our prayers to Dolores Miller and her family. Her brother-in-law, Buzz, was moved to rehab in Richmond on Friday after spinal surgery for cancer treatment. Dolores and Eddie will see her sister next week, Mary, in Virginia, and we send them our love and strength. We also send more prayers for recovery to Cynthia Durham, who had cataract surgery on Wednesday. She's doing well and healing at home on light rest. Warmest condolences to Marlise Pastore, whose mother Sally died in hospice on Tuesday in New York. Sally had been ill for quite some time and died with family gathered near. Our hearts are with Marlise, spouse Jim, and extended family in this time of loss. We're thinking of Carol Chamberlain, still in rehab from hip surgery at Stoddard Baptist Nursing Home. She's doing well and walking the hallways, according to Marjorie Myers, who saw her this week. We are offering condolences to Bill and Chevy Rice as they prepare for the burial of Bill's mother this Friday. And there is one among us who wished to remain anonymous, but who is going through surgery this week for breast cancer, and we are holding her and her entire family in light and love and care, praying for a full and complete recovery. So now, in the silence that follows, we invite you to say aloud the names of those who you carry on your heart or mind this morning, or put their names in the chat so that we may hold them in tender care. And join with me now in a spirit of prayer. O Spirit of life, known to us by many names, we pause to hold the whole of our lives in this holy moment, made sacred by our gathering. We pause in honor of Father's Day, and we give thanks for those who have fathered us from birth or by marriage or mentoring, those who have given us our time, their wisdom, their support, and their love. And for those fathers for whom we have struggled to love, we offer in this moment a respite of grace. For those about to become fathers, we offer you our support, for your job is no less arduous or exhilarating than your partner's. For those fathers who have died, may the good that they engendered in us remain as a balm and a blessing. For the beauty of this day and the gift of this new season, for the ways in which we support one another through the many seasons of our lives, we offer our hearts and our thanks in gratitude and in praise. Amen.
Transcendental Etude by Adrian Rich. No one ever told us we had to live our lives, make a study of our lives, make of our lives a study, as if learning natural history or music, that we should begin with the simple exercises first and slowly go on trying the hard ones, practicing, till strength and accuracy became one with the daring to leap into transcendence, take the chance of breaking down the wild arpeggio or faulting the full sentence of the fugue. And in fact, we can't live like that. We take on everything at once before we've even begun to read or mark time. We're forced to begin in the midst of the hard movement, the one already sounding as we are born.
I grew up in a Presbyterian family in a congregational shaping rhythm. The various touch points of the week, worship, youth group, choir, all blended together in this long liturgical view. This was the church of my parents, my grandparents, and many ancestors before, so the way of life was considered a given. It was not a choice when I was young, but a heritage and a requirement. There was a 12-year gap in that rhythm for me, after high school, all the way through my 20s. Other kinds of communities nourished me. And then when I was turning 30, a congregation in Chicago captured my attention and my spirit. It eventually catapulted me into divinity school. The return to church life was unexpectedly moving. The rhythms felt beautifully familiar and very compelling as an adult. I was choosing that rhythm by that time. And so there was an anchor quality, a center to my week and within my mind, body, spirit in church. A center I had not even known that I missed until it returned. The absence of center has been so disorienting over the last year for many of us. Oh, we've adapted to Zoom in so many ways, to be sure. Yet standing here in this courtyard with other worship leaders and this live choir reminds me again of what has been absent. To feel the energy of other bodies in the same space as congregation. To imagine more of us together this afternoon in our solstice celebration as congregation. To imagine you all out there on Zoom, whom we now can't see. It's wild. It's flipping the script. It's both exciting, strangely unfamiliar at the same time. And so it's going to take a while to process what we all have been missing along the way of this shutdown. Our reading by Adrian Rich describes a search for that center in musical metaphor. It is the struggle to get our bearings in the midst of so much sounding. She said, no one ever told us we had to study our lives, make of our lives a study. We take on everything at once before we've even begun to read or mark time. We're forced to begin in the midst of the hard movement, the one already sounding as we are born. In our own ways, we are all seeking some kind of coherence, some sort of central meaning. This was abundantly clear to me as the pandemic evolved and continued. And whether it be through institutions like All Souls or our networks of family and friends, work that inspires us, or communities that gather around identity or solidarity, there is this deep human yearning to belong, to blend in that choir of humanity that sings in various harmonies over time. I was really amazed by the nature harmonies that many of us in the region heard over the last month. Yes, once more, on the cicadas. I miss them already. that otherworldly humming was in a kind of chord with other sounds. The rushing of the water at Rock Creek, that low rumble of traffic, the murmur and the shouts of human life, and this array of birdsong. The cicada tones seem to hold it all together, to be pervasive in certain wooded areas, so that they became a kind of sound dome over us, one that created this unified field of resonance. Cicadas were the choir over our heads, singing music everywhere. And you might be finding and tending your own chords now, the way that you harmonize with your closest loved ones, even the ones with whom you have endured some captivity, the groups that keep you humming, the experiences that make your heart sing. And in this congregation, we have this wide range of life-sounding activity, the rhythmic gathering for worship service, the continuing places to be in social justice action, the ongoing groups that are arranged by theme or function. This is what it means to be church, to be like a large choir with a range of voices and songs to sing. And of course, there are the actual choirs with a wide bounty of gifts that so many of us cherish. The All Souls Choir that is sweating here today, the Acoma All Souls Drum Choir this afternoon, the Jubilee Singers last Sunday, the children's and junior choirs, the Women's 8 small chorus, the special Bluegrass Black American Music Sundays, which showcase even more singers and musicians. This musical feast represents the heart of the congregation. Every month, week in, week out, this singing in community shows us what it feels like to be community. I looked up the music mission statement. It declares, "We strive for excellence while representing and manifesting a ministerial spirit that upholds inclusivity, embodiment, and diversity, and works to sustain all souls' mission to create and nurture beloved community." I can get behind that. The choirs remind us who we want to become as a larger whole. They model this very caring network of relationships, which are the strengths of this place, and the many ways that we work together over time. So seeing All Souls music on Zoom all year has been life-sustaining, truly. Thank you. I went to an All Souls choir rehearsal a couple of weeks ago. It had been a long time. I remembered how a choir section really supports you in your own wandering. My fellow altos were a collective, steady force. When I lost my way in the score or needed to sort out notes, there were other voices to carry me. Now and then, I just kept quiet because I didn't have a clue where we were. But other people did, and that made a way for me to get through, a river of sound to follow. And I'm no fool. I sat next to Rochelle Rice. This is pretty much like life, isn't it? We do better in sections, in pods, in family, in clusters of people who are trying to sort it all out together. And when we sing in community, we are somewhat relieved of that solo pressure that can get so heavy. We find a kind of ballast and support, a navigation system that helps us chart the way. This helps us to get out of our headspace, our endless internal conversations, in order to broaden the view and lighten the load. The solstice point today is one of those broad views. It is a balance between light and dark. It is a marker of seasonal turning. And whether we are noticing the advent of summer days in the north or seeing winter's southern light about to lengthen gradually, this tunes us in to that cosmic dome that the cicadas knew. That music of the spheres over our heads and the planetary life that unites us as creatures around the globe. I close with a poem by Ernesto Cardenal, who calls us to this universal consciousness of oneness. The music of the spheres, a harmonious universe like a harp. Its rhythms are the equal, repeated seasons. The beating of the heart, day, night. The going and returning of migratory birds. The cycles of stars and corn. The mimosa that unfolds by day and folds up again by night. The rhythms of moon and tide, one single rhythm in planets, atoms, sea. And apples that ripen and fall, and in the mind of Newton, melody, accord, arpeggios, the harp of the universe, unity behind apparent multiplicity. That is the music. Unity behind apparent multiplicity. That is the music. So grateful we are here making it together, all souls. Amen.
My father was 40 when I was born. I missed all the early days that my sisters and brothers saw. By the time I was around, my father was a pillar of the community. This had not always been so. One Saturday afternoon when I was about 11, someone rang the front doorbell. This was strange, as anyone who visited us regularly would have come to the door on the back porch. I was nearest to the front door, so I opened it. There was a large, angry man standing on the porch. He said, "Go get your father." Now, this wasn't the first time an angry person had showed up at our house. My father was the housing director for our town, and 2 or 3 times in my life, folk who'd been denied public housing or been evicted had come to our house to bring their grievances directly to my father. But none of the others had shown up armed. The man's pistol was held down by his side, but that was at eye level for me. I turned to go and fetch my father, only to see him walking toward the door. Even before seeing the man, he told me to close the door behind him and stay away from the windows. My father walked out and cut the man off as he began to speak, telling him he wasn't going to have this conversation on his front steps, and backed the man down onto the sidewalk. I did not approach the window, but I watched the man rage, and I watched my father stand his ground and speak quietly until, his shoulders slumping, the man turned and walked away. I never asked my father what that had been about. I never mentioned it at all. But a few things that had been nebulous concepts before then came sharply into focus for me. One, the impression that my father was not a man to be trifled with seemed to be absolutely true. Second, that I was indeed as safe as I felt. But more important was the realization that all my current comforts, all my present luxury and ease had been paid for by a past that I knew nothing about. A past clearly filled with privation and struggle and more conflict than I had imagined. I was much more impressed with my father and appreciative of my blessings after that encounter. On this Father's Day and this Juneteenth weekend, I find myself feeling a similar appreciation for all souls. As I stand here once again in this beautiful building, a building I've missed, I'm brought to a realization of all the struggle and sacrifice that is woven into the fabric of this church. Emancipation wasn't created by a stroke of Abraham Lincoln's pen or General Granger's announcement. It was the result of the demands of thousands of voices. Many of those voices raised right here in this church long before June 19th, 1865. Why, the bell we hear tolling as we walk to church was once known as the abolition bell. This church is not a stranger to conflict or its costs. I think of these things and understand my feelings of belonging and safety here. I take in the work that All Souls has been doing for the past 200 years, and I feel impressed and appreciative. This morning's offering will now be received.
indeed together in our blue boat, in the struggle, in the power, in the conflict, and the love. Finding a way forward, singing in community. May the music of the spheres lead us towards our best self and our best offering to the glories of this world. May it be so. Go in peace and return in love. Blessed be.
I just must thank the choir today for your extraordinary gift. We are so glad you were with us today, and we invite you to stay for coffee hour after the service on this same channel. If you need our ASL interpreter, please put that request in the chat. Guard well the human chain and keep it strong by the bonds we build with one another. Go in peace.